My name is Hartley. I'm a teacher at Worcester School, senior high mostly. And I know a lot of teachers that had lots of conversations about technology in the past several years. I remember when I first came to TEDxAklavik in 2007, our internet connection was this little box that sent a signal over to the other end of town, and it was just a little bit better than dial-up. And of course today we have DSL, and it's getting better all the time. So the other day I was in my classroom and I was talking to my high school students, and I asked them about technology. What is technology? So I ask you today, what is technology? These things. The first thing people say, these devices right here. And I bet if I look around the audience here today, I can find some of these. You might be hiding like this, so hopefully nobody watches and even checking my email, right? Or maybe it's in your pocket close by. Cell phones, computers, iPads, tablets, internet, video games, common technology that we hear and we talk about every day. But it's more than that, or is it more than that? Because when I was talking to my students, I said, well, what about some other things? And how would you define it to yourself? Well, it makes life easier. We can do more things. It makes our everyday living a little bit better, a little more efficient. We can get more things done. I said, okay, so what about some other examples? And you can see, even up on the stage here, we have snowshoes, we have drums, we have jiggling hooks. All forms of technology in different ways. Seen this slide a little earlier. It's actually me out there with my students building a tent frame for the school camp. Technology was involved in creating that. We don't have generators out there for electric saws and things like that. We had to use hand tools. That's my son, Daniel, demonstrating the use of technology in a more traditional way, with a jiggling hook. Of course, modern fishermen today would have nice big fancy little gadgets that would go down to the ice and detect where all the fish were, and you can sort of walk around and find them and drop your hook down there and catch them like that. Well, sure you could do that, but sometimes it's fun just to do it the old way. Communication today is important to what we have and what we do because it's involved in everything in our daily lives. It's very difficult today to live without some sort of technology. Healthcare, education, government services. People do their taxes online now. We don't necessarily have to fill out the papers. It takes you days and days to calculate or to figure it out and mail it back, and maybe 2 months later you get your tax return. Personal use. Of course, we have our cell phones in our pockets and we like to text and check our Facebook and do things like that. I do too. That's why it's still in my pocket. Global networking. Today's youth, and even ourselves, we're attached more than just our friends that are next door. Our next door neighbors are now in another country. They're in China, they're in Norway, they're in wherever. Two of my students in CTS class, and they were working. One of them has their cell phone out, or their laptop. The other one has 2 iPads and a phone in their hand. And for any teacher out there, what's the first thing you think of when you see that? The students are playing with their phones. Actually, they were using their phones. They were doing research for colleges as part of my CTS class. And I've said, what do you have right now that's available to you to find the answers that you need? Because one of them said, I'm trying to find out some information on tuition and things like that. Well, I said, well, give them a call. He said, well, can I go to the office? I said, no, you got a cell phone in your pocket, don't you? They whipped it out. Okay, there you go. Answer solved. Just like that. A little bit different than it was a few years ago. What do students need to know about technology? For us, as teachers, using technology is a little bit different than it was a few years ago. For most people who, maybe back in maybe the 80s and 90s, we all took typing class. Right? Typing, learning how to use K, D, F, J, J, like this. Some people might have done Microsoft Word, maybe in the mid-90s and later. Well, we don't teach those things anymore. We don't need to. And a lot of times, the students come to us and say, well, I get a better way to do that. Can I show you? Sure, go ahead. Great. So I wrote this on the board, technology. Tell me what technology is. Cell phones, tablets, electronic devices, communication, robots, calculators. And then I said, okay, what if I add a word? Oops. I wrote the word education next to it. And all of a sudden, their definitions changed because they were just thinking about their own devices, their own things of personal uses. As soon as I wrote the word education, all of a sudden, they were telling me more about what they like to use educational technology for. Talking to people around the world. We still have our computers, our internet, information, learning, expanding your mind. Paper and pen as technology. Looking at different places. So all of a sudden, they see a whole wide world of things that's a little bit more broad than what the classroom has to offer. Evolution of technology is very important when it comes to this. And we've had a little discussion about where did it come from. If you think about the first human being reaching down, grabbing a rock off the ground, and throwing it at a bird for supper, was that technology? The first time someone decided to pick up a stick and dig a hole, technology. And we've come a long way since then. In the last 20 or 30 years, our technology has increased so much that even research people have a hard time keeping up with what the latest technology is. Today, even besides the technology we have, you can get bands that go around your wrist that will project your cell phone onto the palm of your hand and use your phone like this. Look kind of funny going around talking like this on your hand, but that's out there. Things are changing. Some people had those in their houses back in the 80s, maybe even before that. So what about the evolution of the classroom? If technology is changing that fast, and Velma pointed on this earlier about how do we arrange our classrooms, what should our classrooms look like? We need to change, our classrooms need to evolve. If our technology is changing, and our classrooms don't change, then there's a disconnect. This is my math class. Now this is, I gotta be honest, this was a staged picture. I said, okay, I want you to look as bored as you possibly can, because my math class aren't that boring, okay? So one's sort of sleeping, one's sort of pretending to do work, and the other one's drinking the coffee and sort of, maybe I'll work in a few minutes. Now, that was staged. So I said, okay, I'm gonna give you an iPad, a tablet. And I didn't say anything. I just gave them the iPads. And they went from doing what they were doing to looking like that. And I didn't say anything to them. Engagement. Their personalities changed. Their interest in what they were doing changed just by handing something that was different than what they're used to. Making the connection now between cultural-based education, use of technology. One of the things that we need to use technology for is to get our message across and teach our students how to get that message across to everybody that what we have here is important and what we have to say is important. And learning how to use technology in a more responsible, appropriate way. A lot of issues out today about use of technology, especially in schools. Cyberbullying, sexting, all these issues that make teachers kind of go, oh, I don't want those things in my classroom. Classrooms don't need to be what we think of them. The Industrial Revolution in the 1700s came out and all the classrooms were set up so that kids from farms would come along from September to June, and then we'd go off farming, of course, from July and August. They were used to seeing the person standing up at the front of the classroom, and everybody's rows and things following suit behind. That was the same tradition from the 1700s when schools started becoming buildings, brick and mortar schools, to today. Even if you go down to my math classroom now, my desk points to the front. Because I still know that there's something different I could be doing. And of course, from time to time I shift them around and move them where they should be, getting the kids to be with each other, to talk. Modern technology is a bridge allowing the cultures and the traditional ways of education where traditionally elders would show the youth, this is the way I need to learn things. I'm going to show you. You're going to practice it. Once you get good at it, you're going to show me, and we're going to work on it together. And eventually when you get good enough, you're going to show somebody else, and you're going to pass it on. That was the way things were done. And they still can be done that way. We have lots of great classrooms today that are collaborative learning, experiential learning classrooms. And we're on that road. When we get to accept technology in a different light and use it for a different purpose, we can enhance those classrooms. We can make the bridge between traditional ways and the new ways. We can get our messages out to the world. The challenges that we have, access to information, our internet connections, our e-learning opportunities. Lots of research today that says e-learning is an absolute asset to a lot of companies, a lot of education institutions, as long as they're flexible. And their flexibility is sometimes hindered by, of course, their access. And we're slowly increasing that. Just as recently, we have a couple new things coming up for technology. Of course, we have the fiber optic line that's running up from Alberta, and of course we have Northwest Tel now dropping the rates 30% in the next year. That was a CRTC ruling. Allow people in the north to have access. We need our teachers to embrace change. Teachers today, and traditionally, change their methods of teaching and their philosophies probably about every 35 years is the average. The trouble is, technology is changing every single day. If we wait 2 years to change our teaching philosophies, technology has already gone by. What I want in this message to tell everybody and to get everybody out there, to advocate for access for our students, not just in the school, but at home as well. We can make a difference in our classrooms and what they look like and how we teach our children. Teaching responsibility, that those things in your pocket aren't just for texting your friend next door. There's a whole wide world of things that are possible, but they come with responsibility. Access to information is a very powerful tool. This was just taken yesterday at the school camp. Our classroom was not in the classroom. It was outside at the school camp. And the last part of the message, accept technology as a medium for learning, not just as a tool for teaching. Our students need to find a way to have technology, use it appropriately, and of course, continue for our teachers to use that to benefit our classrooms. Thank you very much.